They called it paradise, a world draped in silk, perfumed with rosewater, echoing with soft music and laughter. To outsiders, the Ottoman harem was a dream, a realm of beauty, desire, and mystery. European travelers painted it as a forbidden Eden, hidden behind jeweled screens and guarded doors. But what those travelers never saw was the fear, the silence that lived between every breath of luxury. Because for many women, the harem wasn't a palace of pleasure. It was a gilded cage. Imagine a young girl, her village far behind her, her language unfamiliar to the men who bought her. One day, she's free under an open sky. The next, she's stripped, washed, perfumed, and clothed. Clothed in silks. To the empire, she's not a person, she's property, a body now bound by rules written in whispers. Every step she takes, every glance she gives, even the way she breathes, all dictated by an invisible code. The harem's walls shimmer with beauty, but they also hum with surveillance. Behind every curtain, there are eyes. Behind every smile, a warning. This was the hidden world at the heart of one of history's greatest empires, a world where power and pleasure collided, and where a woman's fate could change in the blink of an eye, from slave to favorite, from favorite to forgotten, or worse. And yet, despite the cruelty, the women inside learned to survive. Some even learned to rule. They mastered politics in whispers, wielded charm like a weapon, and turned submission into strategy. Behind the silk curtains, empires rose and fell on the backs of women the world never truly saw. So tonight, we step inside that forbidden chamber, not as the painters or poets once imagined it, but as it truly was. The marble floors, the gold-stitched pillows, the scent of jasmine, all hiding the strictest, strangest rules of intimacy and control. Because beneath the empire's glory lay its most guarded secret, the rules that governed the bedroom lives of its enslaved women. And once you hear them, the word paradise will never sound the same again. Before the silk curtains ever closed behind them, the women of the Ottoman harem had already paid the first and highest price, the price of beauty. They came from every corner of the empire's reach. Blonde-haired girls from the Caucasus, olive-skinned captives from Greece, dark-eyed daughters of Africa. Some were taken in raids, others sold by desperate families, a few offered as gifts to win favor at court. The slave markets of Constantinople were their crossroads, a place where innocence was weighed, measured, and priced in gold. To the traders, a girl's worth wasn't written on her soul, but on her skin. Her youth, her complexion, the shape of her eyes, each feature translated into a number. The prettier she was, the higher her price, and the more likely she was to be purchased for the imperial harem. But beauty alone wasn't enough. In the Ottoman world, beauty had to serve, it had to obey. Once selected, the girls were taken into a different kind of captivity, one of refinement and control. The first lesson wasn't language or culture. It was silence. They were taught when to speak, when to lower their gaze, when to smile, and when to disappear into stillness. Their voices were reshaped, their movements rehearsed like a performance. Older concubines, women who had survived the system, became their trainers. They taught the adab, the code of behavior expected within the harem. The girls learned how to bow before authority, how to hold a tray without spilling, how to bathe without revealing too much, and how to move as though their bodies were floating silk. Every motion, every breath was part of a script designed to please the unseen eye of power, but beneath this choreography of grace was cruelty. The baths where they were cleaned became places of inspection. The tutors who corrected their posture also corrected their defiance. The lessons that made them elegant also erased their pasts. By the time their training was done, the name they were born with was often gone, replaced with a new one, chosen by their masters. It was not just a transformation, it was a rebirth into servitude. Still, within that system, ambition whispered. The girls knew that the harem was also a ladder, one that reached all the way to the throne. The lucky few who caught the Sultan's eye could rise from slavery to unimaginable power. The rest remained shadows, attending to the women above them, serving in silence. And so they learned to weaponize what little they had. A glance, a gesture, a moment of poise. Beauty became survival. Obedience became armor. And those who failed, who broke a rule, who spoke out of turn, who forgot their place, vanished without a trace. their stories erased as neatly as their names. In this world, perfection wasn't a gift, it was a demand. The harem didn't just desire beautiful women, it manufactured them, sculpting bodies and minds to fit the empire's most secret mold. Because in the Ottoman palace, every woman was property, but only the most perfect property could hope to live long enough to become something more. In the heart of the Topkapi Palace, behind layers of marble halls and guarded doors, the most powerful man in the empire slept, not as a husband, but as a ruler of desire. Even the Sultan's most intimate moments were governed by law. In his bedroom, power and pleasure were not private indulgences, they were politics. Every night in the harem began with a ritual of anticipation. As dusk settled, eunuchs moved silently through the corridors carrying perfumed lamps. The women prepared themselves in baths scented with rose and amber. Skin was oiled, hair braided, nails polished with henna. But beneath the fragrance and silk, a quiet terror lingered. For in the Ottoman court, who shared the Sultan's bed and how she behaved once inside it could change the course of the empire. There were rules, ancient, precise, and mercilessly enforced. No woman could approach the Sultan uninvited. The choice was his alone, yet even that choice was orchestrated. Senior attendants, known as kahyas and hasnedars, kept lists and reported which women were available, fertile, or favored. When the Sultan made his selection, the chosen woman was washed again, draped in white linen, and led through the dim corridors by black eunuchs who carried her fate in silence. Once inside the royal chamber, the rules deepened. She could not speak unless spoken to. She could not meet his eyes until permitted. Her gestures were rehearsed, her movements ritual. This was not romance, it was ceremony, a performance of devotion within an empire that demanded discipline even in desire. After the encounter, the woman was escorted back, where she would wait, sometimes for months, to know whether the union had produced a child. For within the harem, love was secondary, lineage was everything. A concubine who bore a son became a Haseki Sultan, a favored consort, rising above the others in rank and comfort. But those who failed to conceive were often cast aside, transferred to lower duties, or quietly dismissed to distant palaces. Even the Sultan's desire was regulated by faith. Islamic law required ritual purity. Before and after intimacy, both the Sultan and the woman underwent cleansing. Certain days, such as those of religious fasting or mourning, forbade relations altogether. The act of pleasure was never separate from the machinery of rule. It was bound by duty, sanctity, and strategy. But desire, once caged by politics, often turns dangerous. Rivalries flared between women who competed for the Sultan's attention. Gifts were sent, rumors whispered, poisons brewed. To win his gaze was to risk one's life, for jealousy within those walls could be lethal. A misplaced word, a hint of disobedience, a refusal to comply with the unspoken rules of submission, all could end with exile to the old palace, a cold mansion of forgotten women, or worse, a death hidden by silence. The Sultan's law of desire turned intimacy into governance. It made every embrace an act of calculation, every child a matter of empire. Behind those locked doors, the most personal act of all became the most public, a ritual that preserved dynasties and destroyed countless souls. Because in the Ottoman world, even passion bowed before protocol. And for the women who served that system, pleasure was never their own, it was the empire's to command. The harem was often imagined as a place of indulgence, silks, jewels, and whispered laughter, but beneath the shimmer of luxury lay a battlefield. The greatest threat to a woman's life inside those walls wasn't always the Sultan's wrath. It was another woman's ambition. The Ottoman harem functioned like a miniature empire of its own, complete with ranks, hierarchies, and politics as intricate as any court. At its pinnacle sat the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, the true matriarch, often more feared than the Sultan himself. Her word could raise a concubine to power or bury her in obscurity. Beneath her were the Haseki Sultans, the Sultan's favored consorts, and below them, layers upon layers of attendants and servants, each one clawing her way upward in a hierarchy that never slept. To rise meant survival, to fall meant invisibility. Every smile, every gesture inside the harem carried a second meaning. A compliment could hide a threat, a gift could be poisoned with envy. The women learned early that kindness was a luxury none could afford. Alliances were temporary, loyalty was currency, and betrayal was expected. Among the concubines, jealousy burned quietly, not over love, but over status. A single night with the Sultan could change everything. The woman he chose might receive new chambers, servants of her own, even gold-threaded garments to mark her favor. The others watched, smiling through their teeth, waiting for her to stumble. Because favor was fragile, one misstep, one rumor, one whisper in the right ear, and a favorite could become a nobody overnight. Punishments were rarely public, but always known. A jealous rival might see her privileges stripped, her jewels taken, her hair cut, a humiliation worse than death for those who lived on appearance. Some were banished to the old palace, a twilight world for women who had once known power and lost it. Others simply disappeared, their names struck from the records, their fates left to imagination. Yet within this cruel system, some women learned to master the very game designed to enslave them. They became political tacticians, reading people like scriptures. They understood when to flatter, when to fade, when to let others destroy themselves. The most cunning of them turned gossip into power, shaping the Sultan's decisions from behind the veil. The Valide Sultan herself often orchestrated these rivalries. She knew that a divided harem was a controlled harem. By keeping the women jealous, suspicious, and dependent on her favor, she maintained absolute authority. And so, the harem became a place of delicate chaos, a chessboard where beauty was the pawn and survival was the queen's game. Even friendship came with caution. Women who wept together one night could conspire against each other the next. They learned to mask fear with poise, hatred with grace. Their laughter echoed through the marble halls, but beneath it throbbed the heartbeat of paranoia. To the outside world, the harem symbolized desire and privilege. Inside, it was a labyrinth of power, ruled by women, yet built to confine them. Every ambition had its cost, every victory its shadow, because in the Ottoman harem, love was a weapon, beauty a battlefield, and jealousy the invisible hand that shaped the fate of empires. For all its beauty, the Ottoman harem was not a home, it was a prison made of gold. The walls glittered with tiles from Iznik, the lamps glowed with amber light, the air thick with jasmine and smoke. But for the women who lived there, every shimmer was a reminder of what they'd lost: freedom, name, and self. The harem's splendor wasn't comfort, it was camouflage, a way to make captivity look divine. Inside this world, obedience wasn't a virtue, it was survival. Every woman knew the silent law: obey or disappear. Punishments in the harem were rarely seen, but always felt. The empire didn't parade its cruelty, it hid it behind silence. A concubine who broke the Sultan's trust, who defied an order, who spoke too freely, who loved the wrong man, could be erased without a sound. Some were sent to the old palace, a desolate mansion where forgotten women wandered the halls like ghosts, stripped of jewelry, servants, and status. Others were confined to their chambers indefinitely, their windows barred, their names forbidden to be spoken. There were darker fates, whispered only among the servants, tales of women who vanished overnight, their absence explained as transfer or illness. Sometimes a small boat was seen drifting along the Bosphorus at dawn, carrying a covered body bound in silk. The empire's secrets were buried in deep water, but where there is confinement, there is also cunning. Some women refused to let the harem consume them. They learned to bend its rules instead of breaking them. A few became masters of intrigue, sending coded messages through eunuchs, forming alliances with viziers, or manipulating the Sultan's moods to gain small freedoms. There were women who rose not through beauty but through intellect. They learned the art of politics from behind the veil, advising the Sultan, shaping policies, even arranging marriages and treaties. The harem may have been a cage, but it was one that opened directly into the empire's heart. Those who understood that could wield invisible power. One such figure was Hurrem Sultan, once a slave from Ukraine, who became the legal wife of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Through her wit and strategy, she dismantled the old hierarchies of the harem and turned her captivity into sovereignty. Her rise terrified men across the empire, proof that even within chains, a woman could rewrite the rules. Yet for every harem, countless others remained nameless, their stories dissolved into the marble. Behind the laughter of the courtyards lay quiet sobs. Behind every jeweled necklace, a collar. Even escape was an illusion. The harem's gates were guarded, the outside world forbidden. A woman who tried to flee risked torture or execution. And yet, some tried. Servants smuggled letters to foreign merchants. A few concubines sought protection from foreign embassies, trading one captivity for another. Every escape, successful or not, was an act of defiance, a spark in the empire's endless night. The harem's paradox was cruel and perfect. It was both the softest prison and the sharpest throne room in the world. Women were trapped within its beauty, yet some learned to make that beauty their weapon. Their survival wasn't just endurance, it was rebellion disguised as grace. Because in the Ottoman Empire, the most dangerous kind of freedom was the one that dared to bloom inside the gilded cage. Centuries have passed since the last Ottoman concubine walked the marble corridors of Topkapi Palace. The harem is gone, its silks, its eunuchs, its secrets, all are reduced to relics and museum glass. But listen closely and you can still hear it. The faint echo of footsteps behind closed doors, the whispers of women whose freedom was never their own. The empire may have fallen, but the system it perfected, ownership disguised as devotion, never truly vanished. It simply changed its shape. Today, the word harem evokes fantasy, not fear. But behind that romantic image lies a familiar structure, one that still breathes in the modern world. In brothels masked as massage parlors, in homes where domestic workers are stripped of papers and rights, in the silent trade of human trafficking that spans continents. The faces are different, the language is new, but the rules are the same. Control the body, silence the voice, erase the will. Just as Ottoman concubines were told how to walk, smile, and serve, millions today are taught the same lessons, not by royal decree, but by economic desperation. They are told that obedience brings safety, that beauty can buy opportunity, that submission is survival. And, like the women of the old harem, many learn to endure in silence, reshaping their pain into grace simply because they must. But there are also those who fight back, the modern harems who refuse to live unseen. Survivors who speak out, who break the silence, who turn their stories into power. In them, the ancient walls tremble again. This time not with fear, but with defiance. History teaches us that the past is never really past. The gilded cage has taken new forms, digital, economic, emotional, yet the bars still glint in the same cruel light. We may call it progress, civilization, modernity. But if exploitation still thrives behind closed doors, how far have we really come? The Ottoman harem, for all its splendor, was built on a single illusion, that power could be hidden behind beauty and cruelty disguised as love. That illusion still tempts us today. Every time society turns a blind eye to abuse dressed as luxury, every time silence is mistaken for consent, we hear the old echo return. Perhaps the real legacy of the harem isn't its architecture or its scandals. It's the warning it left behind that whenever desire and dominance intertwine, freedom is the first to die. And so, as we leave those ancient corridors behind, we must ask ourselves one final question. Have we really escaped the gilded cage? Or have we simply built new ones, invisible but just as strong?